Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Linda Conway. I'm the Executive Director for New England Newspaper and Press Association. And today we're thrilled to have Kenny Katzgrau join us. Kenny's going to do a session for us on Make a Media Kit that sells in 2025. If you have questions as we go along, go ahead and pop them into the chat, and we'll get to them when it gets to a good break. Now, Kenny's the publisher of RedBankGreen and the creator of Broadstreet, a company and ad manager that recently won LMA's Best R&D Partner. Previously, he was an engineer at Mozilla and Yahoo. Then he fell into publishing, learned to sell, and took up the torch of helping RedBankGreen, an 18-year-old hyperlocal news site, stand for 100 years. He says he's here to make sure other publishers stand for 100 years too. And the first step is taking marketing budgets back from Facebook and Google. Today, Kenny's going to share how we can enhance our media kits, boost ad revenue, and effectively communicate your publication's value to potential advertisers. We're going to be recording this session, so we'll send out a link to everybody afterwards so that you can access it again. Kenny, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Linda. All right. So before we get started, it looks like we got a small intimate group. I just want to ask if everybody can just maybe just start test that chat function. Looks like Josh already got to it. Let's just drop our name and location and publication into the chat and just see where everybody's from and where you're working at. And I'll just drop my name in there too. So I'm gonna do Kenny from Red Bank, New Jersey, and on the publisher. Cool, we got Caitlin in there. Caitlin, 7 days up in Vermont. Sean from the Concord Marketer, New Hampshire. There's Josh, Vermont. Justin, Chris at the Whole Times, Justin at the North Star Monthly. Melissa, Beacon Media. Steve at Concord. Ken at Main Biz. Allison. Cool. Awesome. All right. So thank you all. The way I like to do it is, because we got a small group, I know we could feasibly, if anybody wanted to come off mute during the presentation and just ask a question, it's small enough we could actually do that. But also, if you want to drop your questions into the chat, because it is small enough, I'll be happy to kind of stop and speak to the question as I'm going. I also got some time for Q&A at the end, but because it's small enough, I think we could actually do that. Normally, I say we can only do questions at the very end if there's too many people on board. One last question before we get started. In regard to media kits, I just want to get a sense of where we're at. What is something that you're hoping that we cover during this session? Just one thing. I know some of us, we come on, we say, okay, let's just see what they have to say. But if there's one thing you're like, oh man, are we going to cover such and such? What might that be? So if you got one of those, just drop it into the chat. There's one burning thing you're like, man, I hope they get to that. So maybe an easy way to simplify all of the offerings. So I'll speak to that. And it touches a little bit on what goes on here. It also is related to a presentation we just did on pricing and packaging. They're kind of like interrelated. So anybody else got like one thing that they'd love to see? Best ways to convince small businesses that are not tech savvy, how you can bring them value. I've got a way that I break that door open, and I'll be happy to speak with that because it goes right in my media kit, and I got my media kit in there. Do you actually put pricing in media kit, or do you save it for rate cards? That is a fantastic question. So I'll speak to that. That's a really important question too, because that comes up a lot. All right, any others? We'll give it like 10 seconds in case somebody's furiously typing. So, all right, cool. So thank you all. It's been let's keep that chat active, especially if you have any questions or they come up. We are recording this, and of course, any questions that might come up afterward, we're happy to answer those. Or Adam, who's on my team. So Adam, I think Adam, did you drop your name into the chat? So Adam is at Broadstreet and has done some work at RedBankGreen as well, which I'll talk about in just a second. Let's go ahead and kick it off. We got 108. All right, so today, media kits. We're going to talk about the really important things that go into a media kit. Just to give you a little background on that, I have seen at this point, it's got to be thousands of media kits, but I've seen them not just in local news. I've also seen them in parenting magazines. I've seen them in city and regional magazines. I've seen them in B2B publications. I've seen them radio broadcasters, all kinds of different special publications. I've been around the world of publishing and I've seen media kits. In the same way you could go around and experience food from different places. There's some things that I really liked in certain publishing verticals that I wanted to bring back to the media kits that I work on for RedBankGreen. So we're going to go over the 7 keys or 7 Ps of a great media kit. We've got some examples and a template that you can follow. I know sometimes you're thinking, all right, we need to do redo our media kit, but then you actually have to get down to do it. And then like, where do you start? And so we got some templates that you can follow if you want to adopt some of the strategies here, or maybe just completely build on top of it. So this is normally a slide that I put at the very end. So this is our downloadables, right? So we've got our media kit examples. There's one that's a Google Doc, one that's Google Slides. I did a presentation on this. This is a slightly evolved version of the media kits presentation I did with a guy named Eric Schanfelt, who does a lot of work with B2B media. So, so if you want to download our media kit templates and some of the different things, there's also 2 links in there that might be particularly important. If you're interested, how to price and package in 2025, a webinar we just did. It had over like 1,100 people registered, and then I think it was like 800 who showed up. So it was a really big webinar, had a blast, had a really smart guest, and then how to sell digital advertising. That's our approach to digital advertising. All right, so there's that QR code one more time, but Adam also dropped a link into the chat. So a little bit about myself. I'm best known as the creator of a company called Broadstreet. Broadstreet is like Google Ad Manager, so it's a software that manages the ads and the delivery on the site. Doesn't sound that exciting at first, but I got one reason for doing what I do, which is to make sure that small businesses are spending money with our publishers instead of Google and Facebook, because 80, 85, 90% of the sales meetings I go to, that client is usually already spending money with Google or Facebook or a local agency, or has done so in the past. The publisher of RedBankGreen, which is one of the earlier hyperlocal news outlets that is online only, serving Red Bank, New Jersey since about 2006. I've been very involved since about 2011, and then took over as its publisher about 3 years ago. Formerly an engineer at Yahoo, I was working on their ad exchange. I didn't expect to get into advertising and publishing, but it sort of happened that way. Worked at Mozilla on some of they had a few different projects around HTML5 and the different things that HTML was capable of. Then also Automatic, the company that makes WordPress, from Red Bank, New Jersey. And husband to Katie, was an educator for like 10 years, and dad to 2 boys, Kenny and Will, as I like to say, Ken and Will. So my promise to you is that if you really wanted to put together a media kit and it's just one of those projects where you're not even sure where to get started, you can't even really seem to get the time, I'm going to give you a very simple process for creating the media kit with the 7 things that definitely got to go in there. And some of those are things that you rarely actually see in a media kit, and they're extremely effective. So especially speaking to that one comment by somebody in the chat, best way to convince small businesses that are not tech savvy how you can bring value. So, all right. So John also brings up potential advertisers who think all they need is Facebook. Classic. So that's the how to sell webinar that's linked on the one that Adam dropped in there. That speaks to that very strongly. I'll speak to that today. So it all starts with something like this. Hello, I'm interested in your advertising rates. Thank you. My name is Joseph. It's for Bagel Station in Mama Street. So again, inbound email like this. Just quickly in the chat, I'm just curious what your next move would be. So you probably get emails like this too, the inbound. Someone shoots you a text, they potentially want to advertise with you, and what do they want to know? They say, hey, what are your rates? What are your rates? So when you get an inbound email like this, just drop it into the chat. What will your next move be? The next step. Say, what's my advertising rates? What should I do? Should I respond? What should I respond with? I'm gonna give it a few seconds to say, find out more about what they're looking to promote. Perfect. So along the lines, to best help you, I need some more information. Allison, perfect. Thank you for that. All right. We'll go for three. We'll see if anybody's got a third. There we go, Sean. Options are infinite. If you could answer a couple of quick questions, I can better customize solutions. All right, perfect. Now, did you notice that all three of us, we said something. We actually did something that I always find hilarious. We did not send them the rates, right? That was like the last thing that we're going to do. We're not going to send them the rates. Some people actually, not the people on this call, obviously, might actually send them the rates. They might send them traditionally what we're used to in advertising, which is like either a media kit or rate sheet. Say, okay, well, these are the options. What do you want it to be? So this was another one that I got. Hello, we're interested in advertising. It is 2025, and I think cannabis was legalized last year or the year before. I think Massachusetts got it, was more or less really early on that. Hello, we're interested in advertising. Can you please send information? This was for Canopy Crossroad, which was a dispensary near me, and that was new. We had never had anything like that before. But again, can you please send information? So don't send them the information. So let's talk about some myths when it comes to media kits, right? Because some clients, like I said, might send the media kit back in response. What are some things that other people might think of a media kit as, or some myths surrounding them? Well, one is that they might think of the media kit as like this menu of options, that we're going to do what they said and just send them the media kit, and in that we're going to have our packages and our pricing. They're just going to figure out what works well for them. And the reality is that it's like a menu, but it's kind of in another language. It's kind of like it's difficult to understand for somebody who might not be in marketing or media. Have you ever had that experience of being at a fancy restaurant and there's things on the menu that are like, I don't even know how to say that. I guess I don't want it. I'll just have the chicken parm, thank you. So media kits are usually confusing to everyday people. It's a poor replacement for a salesperson. A lot of times, some of the people, especially who came on our webinar when we did this last year, and we had about 800 people there to learn about a media kit. Some people wanted it to act as a replacement for what would normally be a sales process. So the people in our chat today said, no, we got to ask questions first, is my favorite thing to do. So it's not going to sell like a salesperson can. In fact, it's a pretty poor replacement, because the absolute best salespeople on this planet want to figure out first, well, how is it that I can help them? Can I even help them? And in order to do that, you got to ask questions and see where they're at. But the media kit kind of just throws the problem in their lap and says, all right, you take care of it. The reason I don't like the media kit as a salesperson is because fundamentally it's kind of transactional. It's like, okay, here's the media kit, take a look over, see what you want to buy. And Facebook and Google, they're the kings of transactionality. They're just going to, when it comes to just giving them an interface where they can buy, like they got us beat. So I find media kits are best as a lead generator, maybe a conversation starter, or a little bit of icing on the cake. And I'll show you how I use it in my sales conversations. I have a few screenshots. So the next thing is that the media kit is about us. And that gets you part of the way, right? But it's really good when you start to think about the media kit as something that's really more about them and helping them understand more about who we are. Right? So it's really for them. We want to think about it from their perspective, because it's fundamentally to understand if they can trust us. And so that might, if we're really thinking about, well, how am I going to communicate that they can trust us? It might change what goes into your media kit a little bit. If it's all about you, you might forget to think about, well, what are the reasons that they might be able to trust us? They're trying to get a sense of whether they believe that we can help them. And so much of ad sales, especially with small businesses, is about belief. Do they believe that we are somebody who can help? Products and pricing are important, but they are not the top priority. In fact, they are the bottom of our list. Of our 7 things that we're going to talk about, products actually comes last. And it should be simple. So I've seen media kits. I saw one in B2B that was 80 pages long. I don't even know how that passed anybody's muster and thinking that this is a good idea. It's about them. So next is that it should have the pricing. This I'm not going to take a hard stand on. You know why? Because there are very good arguments in both directions. It's true that some people want the media kit, they want to know the pricing before they have the sales conversation because they want to know if it fits in the budget, right? But what I find is that a lot of people come in with preconceptions around what the advertising involves, and they make this snap judgment as to whether it's valuable or not. So I kind of actually straddle the fence a little bit in my own media kit. I suggest an idea of what the pricing is like, but I don't actually use it. So if you omit pricing, you don't have it in your media kit, you're going to encourage more conversations. Some people inevitably go away and say, you know what, forget it, I don't have the pricing. But you're actually going to encourage more conversations, right? Some of those conversations may not be qualified because they don't know your pricing. So if you add your pricing in there, you're going to qualify some people. People will pretty much only have that conversation with you if they think that if they think it's affordable to them. So personally, I don't like to put it in there. I like to put an idea of generally how much it'll cost. I know that's a little vague. I'll show you how I do it. But there are staunch advocates on both sides. So my personal position is that as publishers, I think we need to have more conversations. So I admit it. I'd rather talk to more people. It's not a waste of my time to talk to another business owner in Red Bank. It's, I'd like to have more of those conversations. So here's some ways to get ghosted in a sales conversation. So I'm sure everybody's had this experience. You crushed a sales meeting, everything was going great, and then we get into a situation where they're not responding to us by email, they don't answer our calls. It's been a few days, it's been a week, it's been 2 weeks, and what happened? So there are 2 great ways to get ghosted in a sales conversation. So the first thing is that we make them work, or we make them think, right? So we send over that media kit and they got to look over it. And a lot of times when we get those little one-line emails, hey, tell me about your rates, like we got from Joe at the bagel shop, that was the first one that we got. He probably sent that from his phone. And, it was just so off the cuff that if I send Joe a media kit, he's probably not going to be able to he's not in the position where he can parse that. He's not ready for that. So if I make him think, what he's going to do is he's going to say, all right, I'm going to come back to this later. And then, with small business owners, later never comes, right? So the second way is that we make them work. And this is, basically we give them some task. And this is one of the reasons that self-serve advertising and stuff like that, especially for the types of clients who really need us, they really need us to do their marketing for them, or at least move the needle in that direction. If we give them some kind of interface where they have to do the work, one of the best advantages we have as a local publisher is to take some of that work off of their plate. We can do that. A Google, a Facebook, and most of our competitors are not going to do that, but we can take some of that work off their plate. So let's talk about the goals of a media kit. There's really 3 primary goals as I see them. As a lead gen, right? So we have it on our website, kind of a fire starter, right? To support an active sales discussion. So during the meeting, you could use it, especially if you want to use it for any visuals, if you're in person, if you got a printout or you got your iPad or your laptop or something like that. I like to use it as a final impression. I like to keep my sales meetings just purely conversational for the most part. And then I like to drop it as a final impression, as a wrap up in my, my follow up to the sales meeting, where I kind of send a proposal or whatever it might be. And I'd say, here's my media kit attached if you'd like to have a look over. There's some testimonials in there, which you'll see. The other thing is that it's a media kit. So some of us, or the other thing is that it's repeatable, right? So it's the same media kit every time, which is really important because it says what you want to say in the way you want to say it over and over and over. And some of us, when we have a sales conversation, ever crush a sales meeting, and then like the next day, you don't crush as much for some reason. Maybe you just had an off day, you didn't get good sleep. So like as people, we tend to be inconsistent. Media kits, they say what we want them to say, and they are incredibly consistent. So it's just part of a repeatable process where anybody who sends that media kit over, it has more or less the same effect. So just thinking about the repeatability is important here. So let's get into the 7 Ps. All right, these are the 7 components of a really good local media kit. So the first, you'd be amazed at how many publishers kind of miss this one. The place. So what is the place that we are covering? How can we communicate that we are the community, that we are the path to connecting with the community, and that we know it better than anyone else? It's not just RedBankGreen, that we are Red Bank. And in a media kit, there's a couple different ways you want to do that. This is just the way that I do it. And I've seen, and this is borrowed from the city and regional magazine publishers who kind of have a certain style and swagger about them, right? They really kind of own that locality. So this is the way I do it in Red Bank. My media kit, we call it Club Red, anybody who advertises with us. And we got this shot of Broadstreet and West Front Street. It was kind of like a, iconic intersection in town. It's like Club Red. This is Red Bank, unmistakably Red Bank. Another way, this is another publisher in the city and regional magazine space. It does it really well. Our State Magazine. So you can see that pier kind of going off. So Our State does it really well in a lot of different ways. And so if we look in the city and regional magazine kits, you're going to see a lot of this. And I have a collection of media kits at the end that you can like download or peruse to see what you really like. And I really love cherry picking because there's so many good ideas out there. They're just not all in the same place. So I'm doing my absolute best to take all the best stuff and put it into one presentation here. Second thing is purpose. And, it shouldn't be that just like nonprofits are the only one with like a mission and a vision. Putting the reason that you do what you do front and center is really powerful. In fact, I make it a part of my sales conversations. So why do you do what you do, and how do your partners play into the mission and story of what your publication is doing? And I'll show you how I do this, but the more directly illustrated, the better. So Our State, going back to the same magazine that had the pier, is a good example. It says they celebrate the very best of North Carolina. Celebrating the very best of North Carolina is like kind of a phrase that they actually use repeatedly in a lot of different areas. Live storytelling and stunning photography. Everything that we do reflects the beauty, nature, and nostalgia of food. So it's a true celebration of North Carolina. Why do we do what we do? So this is, so this is New England Soccer Journal. I forget the name of the actual parent company. So who we are and our mission, just making sure that's in the media kit. This is how I do it. So RedBankGreen, online only, hyperlocal, started in 2006. Well, our inspiration was the Red Bank Register. The Red Bank Register was a newspaper in town from 1879 to 1991 that told the story of Red Bank. It was the portrait of Red Bank. And we said, basically, if we're gonna cover the news in Red Bank, we're gonna do it like them. Now, when I had the opportunity to take over as publisher of RedBankGreen, I actually resisted at first. I knew it was a lot of work. And I got around to thinking about it. I said, wait, what would Red Bank be without RedBankGreen? Truly, like, we're the brightest light that's shining in our town right now. And what happens if it goes out, or it dims, or some finance person takes it over, political person? I was like, maybe I feel like I have a duty to do it. And that became a big part of our mission. I said, long live local news. RedBankGreen is going to stand for 100 years. That's the vision of our organization, that in 2106, we're still going to be standing. And I talk about how important not RedBankGreen is, I talk about how important it is for Red Bank Green to exist because we love Red Bank so much. That Red Bank Green only matters because we love Red Bank. Is that we're the light that shines in this town and we make it better. So I talk about that mission of standing for 100 years, and that actually plays right into my media kit here. So I put this is actually an older slide from my media kit when I first got started, basically brought on the first three advertisers in the new era. But basically, what I do is I break out, I have three tiers, and I show exactly how our advertisers are going to play into that model of standing for 100 years. So in my case, when it comes to pricing and packaging, and I cover this in our pricing and packaging webinar, I've got 4 community pillars, I've got 10 local authorities, and I've got 10 local legends. And what I want to do in my media kit is I want to tell the story of how anybody who works with us plays in to making Red Bank Green possible, the service to Red Bank. So it's not just transactional advertising, it's a little bit of storytelling. We stand for something here. It's a little bit broader than just advertising. So that's one of the things that you can do when you really lean into your purpose and why you do what you do. So the next one is people. Who are the people behind it? That it's, I think, especially in this age of influencers, that the people actually really do matter. And it's ultimately people that connect with people. So who are the readers? Of course, typically this is something you're going to see in a media kit. You're going to see the demographics, household income, average household earns $1 bajillion a year and, does these things. And it's like, okay, yeah, but still, is it really hitting like the way we want it to? I like to show who is reading it. Maybe some quotes from people who read it, quotes from people who support it, and importantly, I like to show the founders, the team, the board, everyone behind it. So I think that anybody who's, heading up editorial, maybe people who've been on the staff for a long time, maybe people who've been on the sales staff or anybody in leadership, that we want to bring these people out. These are the people behind the organization. How did they become involved and what's their story? Why do they think it's important? So these are all things I'm just like, let's create some real connection between people here. And this is just how I do it in my media kit. I have a short little letter that I write to advertisers, and everyone's is going to be a little bit different, although I've been copied almost verbatim from people who sat in on our media kits webinar. I say, hey, dear business owners, even for veteran marketing teams, constructing an effective and cost-efficient digital strategy is time-consuming and non-trivial, even if you've been in digital marketing for a long time. And we've all got a lot going on. So it is a fact that A players delegate to A players. And I'm basically saying I'm the A player that you can delegate to. Because I got a long history in digital marketing. I know how it works. I know it's effective. I know it's ineffective. And I know how to measure that it's effective. So they're going to benefit from working with me. Now, everybody's got a different advantage and superpower. My background happens to be pretty technical. Like I know how to make a lot of this stuff work. There are areas where I'm weak, but I don't speak to that. I speak to this part. But I want them to let them know I'm someone who's going to go to bat for them. So I put that in the media kit. It could just be as simple as putting your staff on the front cover like Greater Long Island did here. And they're a pretty authentic, candid group. And there's lots of publishers who kind of do something like this along those lines, but just bring the people of the organization out and also the readership. You can put your demographics. This is, something that I think was in either ARL Now or Village Media up in Canada. Here's how Bethesda Magazine did it, or I think it was Moco 360 briefly. Before they changed back to so these are the classic demographics that you'll typically see in a media kit, and there are some organizations where you can look up the demographics for your specific locality. I forget the name kind of escapes me, where you can get this kind of stuff. All right, so this one's one of my favorites because we know how people tend to operate. We know how our small business owners tend to operate, that a lot of times they're not exactly making a decision rationally. They're kind of feeling it out. And this is one of the things that really helps them make a decision. Who are the people that you have worked with? And what are they saying? Right? This is kind of like, it's a little bit of social proof. if you can get the thoughts or testimonials of influential people in the community, it is going to go a long way. Of course, I kind of stay away from the political arena. There's no shortage of it here in Red Bank, but I'm not, I've got a mission that's a little broader than the momentary politics, especially in Red Bank specifically. So what I like to do is like to make sure that we've got some testimonials. And if you want a little bit of a pro tip here, you're getting testimonials. I'll show the testimonials. This is not my side. I'll show mine in a second, right? Just getting testimonials. If you reach out to a client that really loves working with you and you want to give them you want to get a really good testimonial, don't shoot them an email and say, hey, we loved working with you. Can you send us like a testimonial? Because normally when you solicit testimonials, like they're kind of like not, they're just not constructed that well. And they're like, wait, can I even use that? So here's your pro tip for getting a really tight testimonial. Ask somebody where they were before they were working with you. Tell them to describe their situation in terms of marketing, the things they had tried, the things that like worked, didn't work. Just get a sense of like, okay, where were you before you were working with me? All right, where are you now? So if you did a really good job for them, like how is your situation different today than it was before? So if you did a good job for them, chances are you elevated the situation a little bit or you moved the needle. So where are you today? And what would you say to somebody who's on the fence about working with me, right? If you get where they are or where they were, where they are today, and what would you say to somebody who's thinking about making a similar journey, you are going to get 9 times out of 10 an amazing testimonial that you can work. And the next slide, though, is not a testimonial that was produced using that system. This one was completely unsolicited. So this is Joe Bagel. We saw him. He was the one who reached out. That's why I used that email, is that he eventually became a raving fan. And he said, you did an outstanding job advising. You produced great results. You are the real deal. You don't just say your advert produced, you back it up. So that was Joe at Bagel Station, right? So integrating the people. Now he's pretty well known in town. I'll show you. I got another one that's even a heavier hitter. I have 2 testimonials in my media kit, but those hit after a sales meeting. So another one, advertisers, what our readers are saying. You can see you're doing great. Scott Broadbeck at Local News Now. If you go to Lion or you go to any of the local news conferences, he's sometimes there. But another really smart person who's doing some innovative stuff in the space quietly. He doesn't tell anybody about it. You just got to watch him. Some of the really cool things that we've done at Broadstreet in our reporting are actually at Scott's suggestions. So just somebody that there are plenty of people in this industry that are kind of like little beacons of for the future, and Scott's one of them. So pain points. All right, now we're getting into that question that was asked about how do we get people to spend money with us instead of Google and Facebook. So I'm just going to ask a quick question in the chat. We're just going to do quick little thing. If you're listening to me, you were doing some other work, you were answering emails or something like that, just listen to this one thing. I just want people to type the word social into the chat if you have heard someone say that I do my marketing on social media. We just post on Facebook. Just type social into the chat. We got Chris, we got Allison, Sean, Melissa, John, Justin, Caitlin, Steve. I'm going to do that too. I've heard that one. Do our marketing on social. In fact, that was actually kind of a part of the inspiration behind, why I ended up leaving Yahoo and doing what I did, was that there was a client at RedBankGreen who was going to cancel because of social, right? But I found out that social and Google, they're not as bulletproof as you might think. So something I like to lay into in my media kit, especially if I can do it in the words of an advertiser, is those common frustrations, right? So I feel like it's a waste of money. Even for people who have worked with a local agency, they've been working with Google, they've boosted posts on Facebook, they still feel like it's a waste, right? So that's especially if they're doing paid spend. Another one is that they post on social media, but nobody's seeing it or liking it, right? And we've all had this experience as publishers. We post an amazing story. One time, RedBankGreen, we posted a story about how our police chief, the state attorney general, had recommended his termination based on ethics violations. And it was tumbleweeds. Almost nobody, the algorithm didn't pick up such an important story. We had to really push on that one and repost it, right? And then, of course, we posted a picture of like ducks walking across the street and it blew up, right? So I post on social media, but nobody's seeing or liking it. Our clients and the people who say that have the exact same problem, right? They put great content out there. They had a local agency produce videos and they put them up on YouTube. And now they're just sitting there and no one's watching them, right? So all of these business owners have this attention problem. And they post on social media as nobody's seeing or liking it, and they just need someone to take care of it for them. And this, particularly this last one, this is true for small businesses. It's true for very large organizations too. One of my biggest clients is the YMCA. Another one that I have a relationship with is Ocean First Bank, which I don't know if they have any locations in New England. I think they might, right? In a position where there is so much going on, that head of marketing over there has so much going on a day-to-day basis that they don't have time to allocate to digital marketing. They need somebody to do it for them, somebody that they trust, right? So I just need someone to take care of it for me. And as business owners, I think we can all relate to this, right? I'm sure everybody on this call, I won't, make a call to the chat, has come into the office on a given day and had like a to-do list of like 10 things to do. And so many things went wrong that day that we got none of it done. We felt completely exhausted, burnout, and we got none of it done at the end of the day. Our business owners are exactly the same way. So they just need someone to take care of it for them. Now, business owners will spend money with somebody they trust to take care of it, even if they said they didn't have any budget. Even if they really didn't have the budget, typically they will find money to work with somebody they believe in and they trust. And the testimonials are a big part of creating that trust. So this was a great example. It just came out of, a conversation. Said advertising. This is Adam Recknitz. He runs a regional brewing company, and very well known in town. Everybody knows who Adam is. He's on all the boards, all that stuff. He said advertising mostly feels like taking piles of money and throwing it down a deep hole. And finding someone who understands the business or core customers and can speak to them in a voice that is authentic, that's one of the biggest challenges. So, he kind of said it better than, really, I spent a lot of time just trying to communicate that a second ago. He kind of says it. The way he was thinking about it. So he's got that kind of authentic and candid line there. So Adam's really well known in town. The testimonials are incredibly important, but I also put this guy in there, right? Does this sound familiar? Getting seen or liked on social media is unpredictable. Post something great, nobody sees it. Spending on Google and Facebook doesn't seem to get noticeable or measurable results. One of my favorite things to do when someone says that they work with an agency is just ask. That's it. Genuinely curious. Is it working? You're working with a local agency, how much do you spend? Has it got to be like 2-3K a month? That seems to be about the average, even for really small, you wouldn't think they had the budget. And they'll say, yeah, we're working with a local agency. I'll be like, is it turning into customers for you? And they'll say like, oh, I don't know. Almost every business owner on the planet has that little shred of doubt in their head. They feel like they're spending a lot of money and they're like, you know what? I don't feel like this is working. And they're willing to try something different. So the way I usually kind of stick the crowbar in that what seemed like locked up situation where I wasn't going to get anything over from Google or Facebook is that I say, is it working? And if it's not working, are you willing to try something different to see if that works? Right? So this will resonate. Another one is that they don't have an expert to help them figure out what to do. Hey, listen, you got to do it. You don't do it. You need someone to do it for you. Right? So I put that in there. So the next one is process. This is an important one. What does it look like if someone says yes to working with you? Right, because a lot of the things that's going to hang somebody up or cause them to, spooky ghost. I think someone was telling me we got Friday the 13th on Friday. So spooky ghost is that um, is that uncertainty will hang people up. So if they don't know what's going to happen, if they say yes. So what is the process? So um, how will you solve this problem in a unique way? How will you be guided? And is it a proven process? So generally, if you can put these things, usually at the end of a sales conversation, I'll say, okay, after a conversation like this, what I do is I put together a short proposal. I'll probably mention some of the things that we talked about in this meeting. If that all sounds good, what I'll do is I'll follow up with a text message or email, and you let me know what you're thinking. If it sounds uh, like a plan, and then if it does, then what I'll do is I'll get the creatives together. We'll pick a launch date, and then we'll get started and go from there. All you have to do is kind of like shine that little flashlight into the future to show them what comes next if they say yes. So this is what it looks like for County 10. There's a few, this is a rare one. You don't see it that often, but basically things that make you unique and what your process looks like. So last one, products, right? So this one is actually not the most important because we've got a lot of stuff we could pitch to an advertiser. There's no shortage of things. Some of us just do, our standard advertising on our website and our newsletter but some of us are doing programmatic and we're doing OTT and we're doing like all these complex things. And the number of things that we can do for a client is like limitless. Like I forget who wrote it. Like the number of things we can do is absolutely infinite. So the products, like, I try to simplify, but I really just reserve for 3 slides, right? So I'll have the tiers. You can have individual products. This is an important piece, and I talk about this in pricing and packaging. I like to position my products or my packages really to say, this is for you. I like to give them a name that suggests that this is for a certain type of client. So I like to, instead of like bronze, silver, gold, I want people to look at it and say, oh, like, you'll see what I have to say in a second, but this one's for me. So I want to speak to the goal and not the product itself. So, where do you want to be at the end of this campaign? That's the kind of name I want to give it. So, this is how I do it at RedBankGreen. I got 3 tiers: community pillar, and this is where YMCA is running an Ocean First Bank, and so this is like kind of my big guys, right? And this is about what I do for, I have 3 or 4 or 5 bullet points for each package, right? So we got our community pillar, we've got our local legend, right? And that's for more of our like our restaurants, like retail, that kind of thing. And I also have my local legend, and that's really about around local professionals, so lawyers, doctors, real estate agents, that kind of thing. So community pillar, local authority, and local legend. Those are the 3 packages that come together. So that said, that's great when you're working with someone locally, but sometimes, especially in terms of like display advertising, you have agencies who just want the numbers. And this is the one place where I'll say, okay, just put the pricing in the media kit. Because a lot of times an agency, they'll come in, this is an example of how I think Village Media does it, and they just put that kind of stuff in there. They put the CPMs for their different things in the media kit because the agency, that's kind of what they want. Another example of the packages going in there, and this is in the case where we actually just have individual products: skyscraper, billboard, or sponsored post. So you get a sense of how they price it. This was down at Potomac Local. And another one, this is more package oriented, Greater Long Island again. So kind of got their storytelling package. They got their classic and their premium. So what does that look like? Biz New Orleans, another one that's put together as one of Eric Schanfeld's clients who presented this with me. So you can see you got their rates in there. And they got a few different ones. Website welcome ad, that's just like an interstitial when you first get to the website. Newsletter sponsorships. So the recap, and like these are the 7 things, and you can put other things in there, but try to keep your media kit around 10 slides or less if you can. If you go to 12, it's no big deal, but the longer it gets, the more people generally some of those pages are going to get missed. So we got place, purpose, people, partners, pain points, process, and products. So we're not done just yet because I want to show you guys a few things. So how I end a sales conversation. This was the dispensary. I said it was very nice speaking with you today. I really love the local, curated, and education focused vibe. I've attached my media kit, right? And I went ahead and I think I put the screenshot at the bottom of that email there. My media kit's attached, which showcases some very happy customers. And these are the responses I've gotten. Not asking about my media kit. Kenny, I'm in. Media kit's really something. And Karen went ahead and signed, and she's still a happy customer. We've expanded the account and done some things with her. So in terms of how I actually go about selling and that question asking, doing a really good job on the question asking can really set you up for figuring out what items in your media kits actually make sense. So in that QR code that we had in the beginning, or the link that Adam dropped, there's a link to the recording of this webinar. And this is the exact system that I use for sales. It's called LIFT, L-I-F-T. Listen, imagine, float, and transact. If you have people in the sales team, some people who are new, who don't have a background in sales, maybe some people on the sales team who you think could use kind of like a crash course, or a little a little something to kind of move them along in their development. This is perfect for them. And it's a nice way. And when I think about my sales conversations in terms of lift, I literally do it during a sales conversation. I am far more likely to make a close in that sale. So here's RedBankGreen's media kit. So Club Red, end to end. So we got the cover, big, hit that place. We got our partners right here. We got the people behind the organization. We got our partners again, our partnership model, our purpose. We got our products, and also a little bit of people. So we got about 40,000 people who read RedBankGreen. Pretty good for a little population of 12,000. Pain points. Products again. So we got community pillar, local authority, local legend, and then our people. And so here's the list. And so in that bundle that Adam dropped, we got a media kit list with a whole bunch of them, some of our favorites, and then a media kit template. So this media kit template is just a Google slide template. And what's really cool about that is that you can just click on that, and you can click file, make a copy, and it'll be, the one on the left is actually really modeled off of my media kit. The one on the right is modeled off of Eric Schanfeld's approach to making media kits. He's a really well-liked consultant in the B2B media space. He's done a ton of work, and he's got a lot of great insight on media kits too. And this is an example of somebody who completely wholesaled Broadstreet's media kit, or RedBankGreen's media kit. So he kind of has a similar letter to his audience, and he even, right down to the packages, he named it like local authority. So he was kind of a upstart news publisher. Again, borrowed pretty much everything out of the media kit, and then posted in our community group on Facebook, just past the 100K in ad sales mark this week. He's a hyper local, so he's starting from practically nothing, and I'd like to think the media kit was a big part of that, important part of that. There we go. So there's the downloadables again. So it's the media kit example. We have me and Eric's, we have the Google slide template, importantly, how to sell digital advertising, and the one we just did, how to price and package. So how to think about your pricing, and that's another system. So media kits, how to sell, and how to price, this is kind of like the trilogy. Some really good stuff in all of them, and some incredible guests who bring it all together. So I just want to go ahead and ask in the chat, any takeaways? If there's one thing that you're like, oh man, I want to put that in my media kit, or that's a must, just drop it into the chat. Just what's the one thing that if you were like going to cherry pick and say, hey, you know what, that's got to get in there. All of it, Melissa. Perfect. Anybody else got that one thing? Or it could be a takeaway from a different part maybe not the seven P's, but something else that I said. Sometimes it's like the comments, the peripheral comments that come out, the social proof, not taking advantage of the capital we've built on in the community, especially if you have a board. If you're nonprofit, Red Bank Green is not a nonprofit, but we are assembling a kind of a community advisory board we call Guardians of the Green, and just getting those faces involved because not all of our communities are so small and tight knit that everyone's recognized. So getting those faces out there. Anybody else? Anybody got a takeaway? Let's shoot for one more. The connection to the mission, absolutely. I'm really big on purpose and mission. You know, I don't think almost anybody, especially in the industry as it is today, you kind of have to really believe in what you do and why you do it. And that's why I also enjoy working at, you know, in this industry today because you're actually just happen to be around a lot of passionate people, people who care about it and we're thinking ahead and like thinking about how do we make this all work. I also like to reinforce my sales team about process follow-up. Absolutely. All right, cool. So any questions? Got a few minutes for questions, and I know it takes a couple of seconds to wrap or to answer any questions. So anything that I didn't touch on, and I'll just go back to the very beginning just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But any questions that you might have that you think I could speak more to, or speak to at all, or speak more to. So I just go back and just make sure. Simplify all of the offerings. So Sean, the pricing and packaging webinar is where we really get down to simplifying it. In this set of slides, I kind of boiled everything down into three individual packages. But what goes into a local legend, for example, can vary a little bit. Sometimes I do a piece of sponsored content and a supporting campaign. Sometimes I just do a display campaign. So I really just want them to identify with one of those packages first, and then I kind of customize it to them, but I don't tell them that. This is what I propose. Best way to convince small businesses that are not tech savvy, how you can help bring them value. If they do any marketing or any posting on social media, chances are I like to find, okay, what are the common things that they tend to have a problem with? Hey, do you guys post on social media? Like, is it working for you guys? Are you seeing that turn into customers? Do you ever post something that you think is great and it doesn't really get the traction? One of my favorite things to do, Chris, right, is that I like to go through their existing Instagram reel or their pages, their Instagram page or their reels. I like to find content that was really good and should have gotten a bigger audience. Or sometimes I like to find something, you know, you look at anybody's Instagram page, it's like 1 like, 3 likes, 5 likes, 0 likes, 0 likes. And then there's one that has like 100 likes, right? And I say, hey, you know what? Why don't we take this and get this in front of a wider audience? And so I like to take their existing Instagram post and turn that into an ad, right? So if Red Bank Green has 40,000 readers, chances are I can get them a lot more eyeballs or people looking at it than Instagram itself could. You know, so Chris, another thing, the how to sell webinar will really go into that because I got 3 of my favorite sales questions. And one of those questions is, what's something that people are surprised to learn about the first time they work with you, right? And every business owner's got them. And I had a brewery owner who said like, oh, people think this is no. People think that we don't serve food because I have this old-fashioned idea that breweries can't serve food. Another one said, oh, people think this place is a hole in the wall. But, you know, we got tons of seating in here. And we've all had that experience. We drive by a place we think it's really small and dingy. It turns out it's like palatial inside. So what are some things that people are surprised to learn about the first time they work with you, right? And once you uncover those, you got a hook on them, man. You say, another one, Joe Bagel. I forgot, this is how I got him. He said, people think of us for bagels, naturally, because the place is named Bagel Station. They don't know that we do salads, wraps. We have incredible lunch business. Right. And I said, Joe, why don't we just get pictures of your salads and wraps in front of everybody? We'll make them front and center. And he's like, let's do that. It made complete sense. So one of my favorite questions for getting all that. All right, cool. So Linda and Tara, I think we're at the end of the questions. I hope this is helpful to everybody. And if you're still in the chat, one last question. Oh, I'll leave it at that. I hope it was helpful to everybody. If you do have any questions, you can reach out to me, Kenny at broadstreetads.com or Adam at broadstreetads.com. Thank you all for having me, and I hope that um, it pushes the media kit need in the right direction for you.
Yeah, I think this was fantastic. I love the tips on how to get the testimonials because a lot of times people just say, "Oh, can you send me a testimonial?" And then you never hear back from them because they don't know what to write.
Yeah,
Uh, Asking them those questions, it just simplifies it for them, makes it so easy.
absolutely. Yeah, just make it easy. And yeah, I like that. That's one of those peripheral comments that, isn't officially part of the slides, but it's a good one. And that one was borrowed from me by or I borrowed that from someone named Lariel, who is also on that How to Sell webinar I mentioned.
Okay. No, this is fantastic. I love the templates and all the downloadables. It's great. It's more than one webinar that you've done here. This is fantastic. Thank you so much, Kenny.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. And like I said, if any questions come up, give me a shout. Be happy to help you get that media kit moving in the right direction.
Thanks so much.
All right, take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.